How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another card game video here on Red Zone Rogue. Today, we are talking about my top 5 favorite card games of 2021. Before we get started, I do want to mention a couple quick things. If you're looking to pick up any Flesh and Blood, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, or any other card games like that, I do have an affiliate link with Channel Fireball. The new marketplace basically consists of local game stores selling through their platform, so buying through one of those stores goes and supports that store, and using the promo code ROGUE goes and supports me. I'd also highly recommend checking out redzonerogue.com for tabletop merchandise. I have playmats, I have some sleeves, we're gonna do like shirts and stuff later, but check out redzonerogue.com for my custom merch. The artists that I've commissioned and partnered with are absolutely fantastic, whether you like anime style art or more, fantasy style stuff, so go ahead and check that out. But without further ado, let's start talking about my top 5 favorite card games of 2021. And I actually went into this with a couple stipulations. I didn't want to just be able to pick any card game that's out there. I wanted to be able to narrow it down a little bit and to kind of make more of a definitive list of my favorites of 2021 and not just a list of my favorites. So with that said, for the purposes of this video, every single card game has to have had a public release in 2021. So that means no Kickstarters that aren't out yet, no dead card games, none of that kind of stuff. So no Sorcery, no Middle-earth CCG, has to have had a public release in 2021, even if I've already played it. So like I said, no Kickstarter stuff that I've already played. And the eligible games just have to be a card game, not a physical card game, and not a specific type of card game, just a card game. So I can do digital card games, I can do a bunch of stuff. So I wanted to keep it a little bit open while also being very narrow, focusing on 2021 specifically. And keep in mind, this list is just my personal favorites. They're not the best card games of the year. They're not the, the best selling. They're not whatever's more popular in your area. These are just my favorite from mostly a gameplay perspective, a little bit of a collecting perspective, but mostly gameplay. We'll talk about that as we talk about the games. And the last little bit is that this list will very likely surprise you. Even if you're a regular watcher of the channel, I imagine this list will surprise you. There are no big 3 games on this list. So no Magic, no Yu-Gi-Oh, and no Pokemon. And so with that said, let's get started. So let's get the obvious one out of the way to start. Flesh and Blood. The Flesh and Blood card game is my favorite physical card game, period. Not just out of current ones, but dead or alive, Flesh and Blood is my favorite card game, and they had an absolutely fantastic year. Personally, I did coverage for 3 of the big main events, the callings here in the United States, as well as the US Nationals, including doing coverage and commentary for the finals, including the very final match for the US Nationals. So Flesh and Blood means a lot to me personally, so I'm a little biased here, but it is my favorite game. It was my favorite game before anyone even knew about it. You can go check other videos on the channel. I have some really old ones, opening up the very first set when it first came out. So I've been a huge fan of this game ever since it launched in 2019 and early 2020. And it's straight up my favorite game. And this year was great. There have been a little stumbles here and there from like the distribution side of things, some really overpowered cards that had to get banned. Looking at you, Duskblade. But through all of that, I still absolutely love Flesh and Blood. It is my favorite game to play. I also love collecting it, but for me, it's all about the gameplay and the art and the world and the lore. Absolutely love Flesh and Blood. If you have not checked it out, I highly recommend checking it out. Get a starter deck for like 12 bucks, play with some friends, and see if you like it. Absolutely fantastic game, and it's my favorite game of the year, to no surprise of anyone. Let's talk about number 2. Number 2 is my second favorite game of the year, and this is not exactly in order, just these 2 games. My second favorite game currently and of the year is WeCross. So WeCross is a Japanese trading card game that has been around for about 6 or 7 years, and it finally got an English release this year, and it is absolutely fantastic. It is my opinion that this game is the best anime card game on the market right now, has the best art, has the best gameplay, and it is absolutely so much fun to play, and it does not rely on a pre-existing IP like Weiss Schwarz relies on all of the IPs. This is kind of its own unique thing and own unique takes, though there are some like VTubers who make appearances in some of the cards. WeCross is such a fun game. If you can get your hands on a starter deck to try it out, if you like the anime style art, I highly, highly recommend it. It's not an expensive game, at least not yet. And I think if you're into that art, I think you'll really, really like it. So let's start talking about number 3, and this is where things are gonna go off the rails. Regular viewers of the channel are gonna be pretty surprised by this one. My number 3 pick, my third favorite card game of the year, is not a physical card game. It also is not a competitive card game. It is a single player, story-driven indie card game on Steam. And if you have not guessed already, I'll give you a couple seconds and talk for a little bit. It is an absolutely phenomenal game with a brilliant story and is so much more than meets the eye. It is Inscryption. I fell in love with this game. I went down the rabbit hole and I was completely enamored, enraptured, whatever you want to call it, wrapped up in this game for the couple days that I played it. It's an absolutely brilliant game, and I don't want to say too much about it because that kind of spoils it. I just want to say it's more than what it appears. And it appears to be like a deck builder, roguelite, kind of like a Slay the Spire thing, but it's so much more than that. You have to play it, you have to keep progressing through it and get through the ending. And, well, I don't want to say more than that, but it is such a fantastic game. And also, I feel a little bit personally called out. Shout out to all of the lucky carders out there. Without a doubt, Inscryption is my absolute favorite digital card game of the year, hands down. And there's some great ones. We're going to do some honorable mentions at the end, but highly recommend Inscryption for an amazing single-player experience. So if Inscryption was my absolute favorite single-player game, which it is, then my favorite co-op game of the year, to no surprise, is Arkham Horror, the card game. My partner Robin and I have been playing through the latest Innsmouth expansion, and it is a ton of fun. I highly recommend the Arkham Horror living card game, or just Arkham Horror the card game, to anyone who is into H.P. Lovecraft style stuff, or just like solving mysteries with monsters, or just a really good co-op experience, because I strongly believe that the Arkham Horror card game is the best cooperative card game on the market. It might be just the best cooperative tabletop game on the market. I don't want to make that claim because I haven't played literally all of them, but played a lot of the card games, and Arkham Horror is such a fantastic game. It's a game that I always come back to. We always pick it up and play, the next little expansion going forward, and they're kind of changing how they're doing it now, where you just buy like a big box set of either the investigators or the story, basically. And you can choose which one you get. I'm going to be getting both, but I absolutely love Arkham Horror, and I highly recommend you pick it up. It's one of the only card games my partner Robin will play with me, which says a lot. She kind of likes board games, and it's just a fun, awesome cooperative experience. Highly recommend Arkham Horror. Also, it's not an easy game. It's not an easy game. It could be really brutal sometimes. And my number 5 pick is my favorite mobile card game of the year. And if you are a longtime viewer of Red Zone Rogue, you might be able to guess this one. It is not Hearthstone, even though I was a top 100 North American Hearthstone player at one point. It is not Legends of Runeterra, which I do believe is a fantastic game, and it's not any of the auto battlers, though some of those are fantastic. It is actually Shadowverse. I really love Shadowverse. It feels to me like Hearthstone with less randomization, with the ability to kind of come back with the evolve mechanic, and every new expansion really swaps things up. There is a little bit of power creep, but the old cards are also still powerful as well. It's a game that I never really have to pay money for, as opposed to something like a Magic Arena or something like that. I can just casually play and kind of just get enough and craft things to build the decks that I want to build, which is kind of where I want to be for these mobile games. And it's something that I'll play, just casually sitting in bed before I go to bed. Just play a couple rounds of Shadowverse. I have played a lot of competitive Shadowverse, but they also have a really robust single player story that will take you a very long time to do if you want to do all of it. It does have like voice acting and stuff, with just like stationary characters. But I highly recommend Shadowverse if you like games like Hearthstone And if you like that anime aesthetic, it's just fantastic, and it's criminally underrated. You can play it on mobile, but you can also play it on Steam as well. And so here we are, near the end of the video. I want to give a couple honorable mentions because I played so many fantastic card games this year. There's a couple really, really good indie ones that I really want to give a shout out to. I want to give a shout out to Varia, the first-person trading card game, or it's not really a trading card game, it's just like a card game, right? You just buy decks and you just get all the cards. There's no booster packs, so it's a very affordable game. It's a very fun game. The art is pretty good. I highly recommend Varia. I have a whole video on it. I think it's just a fantastic game, and if you're on a budget, you can't go wrong with it. It's like 20 to 30 bucks. If you buy like the two-player starter kit, that's probably the best way to go. So Varia is fantastic. I also want to give a shout out to Genesis Battle of Champions. It's a pretty unique card game in that it uses a grid. Instead of just, you know, playing cards on a battlefield, you actually have a grid where you get to move your champion around, which is really, really cool. The creator of the game is a very, very passionate guy, and he just really, really cares about the card game industry in general. And it was his enthusiasm that really got me into the game, and it was kind of like the fun gameplay and interactions that kept me around. It's kind of like, it's more like Warhammer, I would say, than any other card game out there. The last two games I want to talk about are the games that I am most looking forward to in 2022. The first one is Sorcery. The game is absolutely fantastic. I've been playtesting it for maybe a couple months now, giving feedback to the creator of the game, Eric Olofsson, who is the creative director of Path of Exile. This game has pedigree. It has amazing, gorgeous hand-drawn art by classic Magic the Gathering artists like Melissa Benson and Drew Tucker. It's the real deal, and I cannot wait for its official launch, hopefully in 2022. Hopefully they have a Kickstarter dropping soon. But that is the game that I'm looking forward to the most. It definitely has the potential to be my second favorite game, and I highly recommend people just keep an eye on it. And the other game that I'm really looking forward to is Grand Archive, which is a trading card game with a fantasy anime style, currently in Kickstarter. And honestly, I just want another good fantasy anime game. There's not really any on the market, and I just want some good ones, and I think this has the potential to get there. I'm actually going to be playing some games of Grand Archive with the developers soon, so I can get a good grasp on it and, you know, figure out if I really, really like the gameplay. But as it stands now, I'm just kind of like looking forward to it. I want it to be good. Got my fingers crossed, so that's one that I'm very much looking forward to in 2022. And that's going to be the video today. If I missed any card games or overlooked any that you think are fantastic, definitely let me know in the description down below. Keep in mind that these are just my favorite games from a gameplay perspective. Not whatever ones are worth the most money, not whatever ones sold the best. These are just my absolute favorite games of the year. I would love to know yours in the comments down below. Is it Digimon? Digimon almost made it on this list, and the reason it didn't is because by the time the booster boxes were affordable, I had kind of moved on to other things, but I think it's a fantastic game. So I'm curious, what games are your favorites of 2021? Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next time for some more card game content. Have a good one all. We'll see you later.